Awake living into uncharted territory together, accelerating your wellness path, plus your interconnectivity at the same time.
It's not your grandma's Ayurveda, but it kind of is.
It's the Yoga Healer Real Life Show with Kate Stillman.
Hello, it's Kate Stillman, and welcome back to the Yoga Healer Real Life Show. And today's show, Ayurveda on fertility, conception, postpartum, miscarriages, and the story of you. Merry Christmas, happy holidays. I chose to release this episode on the day we celebrate the birth of Christ. And the reason is that there's a lot that goes into birthing a new human being. And if we listen to this episode today, and if you listen from a place of understanding your own conception story, your own preconception story, your own postpartum story, and if you are a mother, if you actually go back through that, every offspring that you've had, and you go through each of those stories, you're going to get a lot out of this episode. So enjoy. I'm on with Grace Edison, who talks to lots of the tribe members here at yogahealer.com. And she has her finger on the pulse, and she brings me these great questions and what is arising within the community. And so I hope you enjoy the show. And again, happy holidays. Here we are live on the Changemaker Challenge. It's me, Kate Stillman of yogahealthcoaching.com with the now famous Grace Edison. How's it going?
It's going awesome. Yeah, and you're in your Mexico office now.
Sí, señorita. Sí, señora. You're married. Yeah, it's fantastic. Oh, I love what the water does to my body.
Yeah.
And just playing in water a lot and waves a lot and all that. And it also reminds me, this is interesting, but it reminds me of, I don't want to say this in the wrong way, but like kind of the setting a goal, reaching a goal, and then really getting to enjoy the fruits of it. Cause I'm now 44. We've been living in Mexico, I think since I was about 39, at least part of the year. We have 2 condos down here, and it's all been, more or less like funded by my work. And it reminds me of just the value of what I've been able to offer and being able to enjoy the return of that. And I think this is something that change makers don't often do, which is why they get depleted, is they don't take time to actually experience the energy coming back, the love. I mean, and it truly is love. And I feel super, super blessed to have had great teachers that have taught me how to receive and enjoy, because my MO is just to freaking work hard. And that's what I learned from my ancestors, is to survive, you just work hard and you enjoy later, way later when you retire, right. And by then you're like, whew, right. And so that's what Mexico means to me. All right. So we're talking about deep listening today, and about how as change makers, this deep listening skill, because I noticed it's just like, and I actually just rewrote the yoga health coaching guide, or wrote it really, because it was just used internally mostly before. And now it's for use by anyone coaching in yoga health coaching or in yoga healer in general. And the deep listening section is big, and it's a skill, and there's no making deeper change without the skill. So as I was doing this, I was reflecting on how I think one of the reasons that you've done so well here is your ability to listen from a place of care. And it's authentic care. It's not like, But
You know,
the
because
person you're talking to.
you know, because I'm known to cry on calls. Right? I told you that. I do. I just feel, I know. So I really know when people are telling me about what they're going through, I am like, I know, I remember, right? Like I have that ability to really go back and remember what it was like before. And that brings me into this deep place of like empathy is so high, so necessary when you're having those conversations with people, you know?
Yeah.
I've learned a lot about deep listening, and I think it's always been there, covered up by my desire to talk a lot. So for those of you listening who like to talk a lot, I also understand. And that is something that I had to develop, or I had to kind of dust off and uncover. I had to read a lot of books on it. I had to take training. Kate really helped me with that too. And just having people hold me accountable to that. Like, hey, Grace, okay, we're going to interrupt you right now. You're talking too much. And that was great for me. I so appreciated that. And I think before I was having a hard time converting people who were interested in what I'm doing to actual clients. And I think it had a lot to do with, I would talk myself out of I would talk them out of saying yes, because I didn't shut up to actually hear what they needed and wanted, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It was interesting because I was just writing this deep listening section, and I did a lot of research on the web to see what other thought leaders were saying about deep listening, and watched a bunch of the TED Talks just to see if like there's anything I was missing. One of the things that I just didn't hear, really didn't hear these other thought leaders talking about, is this just caring, like just really actually presencing care and allowing your physiology to presence care. And it's cool because there's been a lot of strides in this area at deep listening of allowing empathetic physiological listening. So you're not just empathetic in your mind of like, okay, now I'm going to empathize, right? But you're actually physiologically available. Your inner body's actually available. Your heart's available to feel the contraction when someone's describing something that's really incredibly painful, or your gut is available. So you can feel potentially in this whole other way of sensing.
Yeah.
What someone is talking about. You can feel their story. And there's been a lot, I think, in let's see, it's like, how can I say this in a somewhat PC way? But there's been a lot of, healer types trying to protect themselves from the energies of their clients. And they cut off this phenomenally well-developed sense that they have to care and to empathize, which they truly do, care and empathize. And then they have this belief that somehow what this person's experiencing will come into their physiology and be toxic within them. And so they keep this really strong boundary and keep it out. Mm-hmm. And if you don't have that belief, if you actually have the belief that that you're grounded enough, and this is where the habits come in, the Body Thrive habits and the habits that we teach. Like if you're actually grounded in your own physiology, you can become so much more available. Listen so deeply, listen empathetically, physiologically from this place of care. And it doesn't affect you at all afterward because you're actually grounded.
That's huge. Like I want to hover over that, because as you know, like there's a lot of talk about being an empath, right? And as healers, being able to feel what other people are feeling. And like you say, there's sort of like this bubbling that people talk about where it's like, protect yourself. And I found that there was like a closing off of my heart when I would do that. And the habits were huge for me in being able to feel and empathize, and then not take it on as my own, because it was like I had like you're saying, like there's a solid sense of self and an ability to like for separation with connection at the same time, if that makes sense, to just be able to, wow, I really feel that I'm there with you. And I'm not this absorbent sort of sponge taking everything in and like making it mine,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's huge.
It's like a different. To me, it's like the definition of ojas that knows, it knows self from non-self and is available. Like it's such a cool. Like that's really the function of ojas, or the immune capacity, right? It's to differentiate self from non-self and to create an enormous amount of strength within self, right? And then that increases all sorts of capacities, including this capacity to care deeply and to empathize. And this is where you see like the Mother Teresa's and the Gandhis and like, bring in your sick, bring in your infected. It's not a problem for me, right? It's not my problem. It's like, So I want to bring this up because I know a lot of people who are in Changemaker, who are not in yoga health coaching, like they don't really have an offering. Like they don't really have a scalable offering. And so when there are people come to them, whether it's yoga students or whether, they're a nurse in a hospital or whether they're a body worker, and someone comes and they have all the stuff that they need to talk about, there's not a way to evaluate whether the person's a good fit for the offering, and then this ability to make them an offer. So that's a problem. And until you have that, this conversation is not really going to make that much sense. So let's just assume that we all do. Even if you don't, let's just assume that you do, that you actually have something that will help most of the people that are coming to you. Okay. I just think we need to make that assumption, because otherwise it's hard to know in a way what you're listening for. Because if someone's coming to you with this idea that you can help them, you need to have the structure to be able to, if you have the structure in place to be able to help them, you're able to listen in a way that's even more grounded, because you're not in the back of your mind trying to like invent something to help them. It's already there. It's already invented. It's already clear. It's already in a safe structure, a safe tested structure.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. So we're just going to assume that. So when we have that,
well, can I add? I was just going to say that was something that was probably one of the biggest things in the beginning that yoga health coaching helped me with, was figure out what my offering was, right? I didn't have that. I had lots of skills and training and all the rest of it, but it was like, I did not have that. I didn't have the offering set so that I could say, yes, this is exactly what I offer. Here's the experience. So I just wanted to mention that was huge, right? As a first step.
Yeah. And it is for, I would say like 99%. I mean, it's pretty high, but like 8% of people coming in, which is why it's structured the way it's structured. Right. Okay. So given that, so now you have an offering that's going to help the majority of people coming to you. So now when someone comes and they'll say, let's just go with the typical person on the personal healer path. And they might come with like, my inner left groin's tight and it won't release. Right. And and it's like, well, there's a lot now to ask.
Yeah.
Instead of just giving them a groin stretch. Right. If we truly get that one thing's connected to another thing is connected to another thing is right. And it can be anything, or someone comments on like, how do you, it's like, I'm having issues sleeping. Like how do I dial in how do I get off, whatever, and dial in my sleep so I can sleep all by, naturally by myself and be well rested. Like there's so much behind a question that now when we have an idea of like, wow, I'm going to need to deeply listen. Let's talk a little bit about creating a safe space to have a conversation, which is not in line at the grocery store and is not in 2 minutes after class. No. Or is not part of a session, a bodywork session that's meant to be a bodywork session, and not a bodywork while you get talk therapy, or bodywork while you try to problem solve these other things, right? So let's talk a little bit about how you structure conversations so that you can get to a place of depth and so that you can be grounded in care when you talk.
Yeah. Well, and setting that up as a specific, like a discovery session, right? Like let's look at our calendars, let's schedule a time, and then we know exactly what we're going to do. And people love that. People love that because they have time to reflect. They might go through a series of questions beforehand. I find that often, like you said, when someone asks a question, there's so many more questions that we have to ask before we can give any kind of an answer, right? And that is, people really feel so seen and heard and cared for when they get, well, okay, so what else is going on? And when you start to ask those questions and they're like, oh yeah, there are these other things and they are connected, because we're conditioned through like the when we go, like when I would go into the doctor's office, just talk about one, right? We only have time for one thing. And it's like, but I think all these other things are connected. To have that opportunity to say, actually, there's this and there's this and there's this. And then often now I'll say, and is there this too? And they're like, yeah, almost like, how did you know that? Right? Which is super cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I think coming from most of people listening here, like most of you are trained in a holistic modality, right? In a holistic practice. And in that holism is already this ability to connect the dots. Like you already have that.
Yeah.
So already have that. But many of the change makers are not leveraging, if for lack of a better word, because I know I use that word too much. Grace has told me not to use the word leveraging because I don't explain what it means, but a lever. So we're going to break this one down now. Yeah. So a lever, like, and I'll just bring it back to the first time I used levers. I was 16. I was in the Cascade Mountains in Washington State. I was working with the Student Conservation Association as a student volunteer, and me and my 5 compadres had a project of clearing a boulder field for a trail. And by boulders, like I'm not being dramatic here. We had to move boulders together. And most of these boulders were 2 to 3 tons a piece. This is what we would do 8 hours a day, is pry boulders out of the way of a field to make a path. And it would usually take 3 of us on rock bars. So a rock bar is a big, heavy piece of, I don't even know, iron, steel, probably steel. And we would lever one rock against another rock to be able to move the 3-ton boulder. Now, me and my 16-year-old compadres, like there's no way we could move this boulder without the rock bar. Mm-hmm. And the rock bar was just this really elegant, piece of it, just straight up, we'll call it steel, right? And it's pretty simple. It's actually not that elegant. It's kind of crude, but it's elegant at what it can do and how it's shaped. And it even has this little cool tip at the end that you stick. You can kind of wedge it under like any of these different size boulders, and we could get these things. We get these things to move. And so by leveraging, right, by using a lever, we can make so much more happen. Now, with less effort. Now, when we have levers or leverage points that we're not using, there's a massive amount of energetic inefficiency. Mm-hmm. And these are inefficiencies, and energy's time, energy's money, energy's awareness, energy's, right? There's a lot of different ways for energy to flow. Mm-hmm. But let's just talk about the financial part of it. When we're not using our levers, we can expect that there's a massive inefficiency in finances, where we could make so much more money, but we don't know how to use our levers. Mm-hmm. Okay, I think I spent way too much time unpacking.
No, that's great. I think that's awesome because you do use the word a lot, and I think it's important. I think I've noticed in listening to you for 2+ years now, sometimes there's a word that I think I understand, and then there's a deeper meaning to the word, and it's all of a sudden I have this moment of like, oh, that's really what she's talking about.
That's leverage. So if our leverage here, if we tie back to what we were talking about like 5 minutes ago before I started talking about Student Conservation Association and moving boulders, we had rock bars, is the rock bar here is your holistic understanding, your holistic perspective, that you will find a pattern. If you carve out the time and space for a deep conversation, you will find a pattern.
Yeah.
And when you see the pattern, this is where you're like, oh, and is this in there too? Because you see the pattern. You can say that on 5 different points, and the person's like, how do you know? And you're like, because I have the map, right? Like I have the map for this pattern. I can see the whole pattern. You're seeing these 4 points, right? I'm seeing the picture. It's like those little, are your kids into, we have kids the same age, but those like connect the dots, and the dots make a picture of like a snowman. I mean, this years ago, right? Yeah. Right. But like you see the snowman, right? Because you see like, and as an adult looking at these, like you can just like take the picture.
Exactly. Totally. That's perfect.
It's be a snowman. And then like 5 minutes later, the kid's like, look, Mom, it's a snowman.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, absolutely. And this is where I have found getting really good at asking the right questions and not skipping over the areas where it's going to be uncomfortable. Like I really now know it's my job to be able to go there and to hold us both in that space, knowing that we're going to come out the other side. And that's something that again is like a muscle I needed to build, a skill I needed to develop, is really being able to deep listen. And then what's the next best question here to go a little deeper, right? And it is done, like you said, safely. We set the space. We're prepared for this conversation. But most people don't have that. Like when I first took my yoga teacher training, one of the first sheets in the guide, in the workbook or the manual, was all the different ways that we don't really listen. So one of them is listening to someone talk and anticipating like what we're going to say next, right? And that was something I really had to work on, was just really, really listening and hearing what were they saying? Where did they want to go? And what was the next question that I had to ask, right? So that's a skill, and it's huge. Like being able to ask. Well, the book I read was Change Your Questions, Change Your Life.
Oh,
and
yeah.
That's no joke, right? Like now that I'm a better question asker, the things people tell me when I shut up and just say like, oh, like tell me more about that, or like let's pause there for a second. What do you think that's about? Is there any of this going on? Like, yeah, and the trust that builds.
Okay, when we come back, we dive into the healing process, healing in postpartum, healing from miscarriages. So stay tuned. And I also just want to let you know, if you want to learn more about Ayurveda and why I think the way I think, you can go to a free training, and it's a great thing to do over the holiday season. It's at yogahealer.com/AYURVEDA, Ayurveda. And it's just, I created a free series because I really want people to be able to know more, to understand more. I know my life pivotally changed when I started to really devote more time and attention to studying Ayurveda. And I just hope that if you're interested, that you do take the next step, investing your attention in what you're really fascinated in. Back to the show.
We all have body goals. We all want radiant longevity. We all want to feel vibrant, lean, grounded. You can have a free body goal session. Get clear on what you want, and we'll let you know if we can help you get there. We'll also give you some free resources to get you going on your body goals. If this sounds good, go to yogahealer.com/body-goals. You'll talk to Lori, who's a yoga health coach. She helps people deeply identify what their body goals are. Often they're not what we think they are. We might think something like very superficial, like I want to lose 10 pounds, but underneath it, there's a deeper body goal. There's a deeper body goal maybe around how you want to feel in your body, maybe what you want your body mass to be like. The losing part isn't actually what it's about at all. This can be transferred to any kind of experience. Like you might say, like, I just want to get a good night's sleep. But underneath that really is wanting to have a deep reservoir of energy in your cellular structures, feeling that deep energy in your bones. So whatever it is, will help you get in touch with that. And in the getting in touch, you actually tap into your desire for body integrity. You tap into your own body wisdom. You awaken your intuition. So it's my delight to be able to offer you these free sessions for you to identify what your body goals are in this next chapter of your life. Go to yogahealer.com/body-goals.
Many of you have been around the past few New Year's days for our community workshop on Dharma, the Dharma workshop. We're doing it again in 2018 on New Year's Day, align into the next level of integrity in body and in Dharma. You can come, you can claim your seat for free if you text the number 33444. That's the to field. And then in the subject line, you put in the word New Year's as one word, capital NEWYEARS, all caps. New Year's. So text 33444 to save your spot in our community workshop, Align into the Next Level of Integrity in Your Body and Your Dharma. I hope to see you there. It's a very powerful experience. We've had rave reviews in the past. I always get this like influx of thanks in the beginning of the new year in response to offering this for our movement here for personal and planetary thrive. Hope to see you there. So this, to me, too, is part, I mean, as my training as an Ayurvedic practitioner, it's like if you don't understand the root cause and you're going to make recommendations and you don't know, you're not at a root cause, like you don't get it. Like, yeah, you can try things and you can get more information from trying things. So if you're really, really stuck and you don't get the pattern and no one gets the pattern, like that's not bad. It's not a bad way to get more information. But most people aren't even digging for the root. They're not even they don't even have their eyes on like, eventually I'm going to get to the root and I'm going to try to get there as fast as I can. So I have a map.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so when you say like pausing and going into those sticky stuff, it's because you're like, this is a vein. I hit a vein. It's going to bring me to the root. Let's both make sure that we don't get distracted by, by stopping here. Yeah. And now me giving you a solution for right here, something that's topical, something that's right. Like, can we at least try to understand the root of the pattern, the root of the problem, so that if we're trying to come up with this example is of healing journey, right? If we're trying to become whole again, or trying to even, I say there's like personal healers and then personal thrivers, because once you become whole, then you can thrive.
Yeah.
Right. So whichever part of that journey, this whole, it's a line that probably does not really have a differentiated point, but it kind of sometimes feels like it does. And it's pretty easy for someone who's trained in this to deeply listen and find out if they're in the healing or if they're in the thriving, if we allow ourselves to go and plumb as sticky and uncomfortable as it can be, then wow, now as the quote unquote expert or the authority or the coach or the leader or the guide or the body worker or the whatever, now there's a chance to actually enable the person to invest in the solution to the root cause.
Right. Yeah. Totally.
Now you both know. Now you're both on the same page. And if you decide to do Band-Aid stuff instead, fine. Right. But at least, seriously, it is fine. Because eventually you're just like, I'm done with the Band-Aids. I'm sick of buying Band-Aids. I want the scab to heal. Right. Yeah. So let me talk about this too now. I'm going to put this back on your plate of, we don't know how long it'll take to get to the root often, right? Like we can't, if we have a set idea of like, I can do this in 20 minutes, talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. And that's something that I think I'm really working on actually right now. So it's interesting that you ask, is like not rushing. I tend to, by nature, I find I'm a rusher, and trying to be really efficient. How quickly can we do this? And now I'm like slowing right down and saying that at the beginning of the conversation with people. Like, here's what we're going to do today. This is an opportunity too for you and I to get to know each other and figure out if this is going to be a good fit, which I love. And that's very, very true, right? Like, we want to make sure that we are on the same page. Like you just said, if it is going to be this Band-Aid solution, that you're on the same page with it, and that you have the same values, and that you understand what the person, where they're at, and what they're looking for. So I've slowed down the process, right? Mm-hmm. Where we're going to spend some time, and then we're maybe going to have another conversation. I had an experience a while back with someone who said, we're going to talk 4 times. And I thought, whoa, that's cool. Like, we have an opportunity to like talk and go away and think about it and then go deeper, right? Because sometimes we can't get there in the first session. Is that what you're asking about?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. No, totally. Because I think when we have and I even do this with yoga health coaches, coming in, like, some of you guys are going to like go to A to Z at 95 miles an hour. And others are going to go 30. And that is, if you're okay with your pace, I'm okay with your pace. And I can provide a lot that'll actually kind of eventually speed you up. I mean, honestly, like, it'll end up with a rhythmic focused efficiency. I promise you that. But I'm okay with us starting at exactly where we are together.
Yeah. And us talking first, it allows us to establish what that pace is going to be. And right? Like, that's and how to really, how to figure out like what kinds of support do you need? What are going to be the things that are going to be your growing edge in terms of like, where might you get stuck or caught up? That's another amazing conversation to have. And I think that
this is part of our self-sabotage video series that, like, I actually just rewrote the yoga health coaching, or wrote the yoga health coaching guide. It's huge. It's like this. Oh my gosh. I was telling Winston this morning, talk about like focused efficiency. I created all these new ebooks to support the coaches. And one's the marketing enrollment guide, one's the coaching guide, one's the admin guide. And they're super duper meaty suckers in there. Right. And then sorry, what were we talking about before I started talking about coaching? I got distracted by me.
Well, we were talking about like how to the length of the process, and that it can take longer, And then also figuring out like the pace and us having conversations with people. And I don't know what you were going to say, but you were talking.
I don't either, but there's something that's really
sabotage. The self-sabotage.
Sabotage. Thank you. So, oh my gosh, I'm writing like in the coaching guide, I'm writing about the orientation. Like when someone says, like when someone's in and they're in for your solution, right? Like they're in for your offering.
Yeah.
What does orientation look like? Like, how do you get them up to speed to succeed?
Yeah.
And this section, I was like looking at, I'm like, does it really need to be this long? Like, do I really need, because I just see so many people don't understand how to kick things off in the right direction on the right foot. And a big part of this is exactly that question, that self-sabotage. It's like, exactly how do you sabotage your own success? And if anyone's a pro healer here and you're making an offering and you're onboarding someone and you don't have them go through this process, and we should do a whole other video on this next in Changemaker Challenge, this whole self-sabotage in working with your people, because if we don't start to own our own patterns, whether they're, I have to do this all the freaking time in order to grow, like all the time. We all do. I'm no different than you. If we don't own the pattern, all we can expect is this iteration in the past. We can just expect the pattern to resurface. And so if someone's going to work with me, and I do this with Body Thrive, it's like every orientation session, it's like, can we please identify how we will, expletive up this for ourselves? Yeah. So we don't get to, can we at least acknowledge, can we at least be truthful with ourselves based on past experience with ourselves, based on reaching for solutions in the past, how we disengage, how we set the bar too high, how we hide, right? How we lurk.
Our perfectionist tendencies are, I already know this, I already did that. Oh, I like run into that one. You and I talked about that. What was it? Self-righteous, self-sabotage.
Yeah. Self-righteous self-sabotage.
Can I brag here for you for a second? I have to say that I think this lends to why the success rate is so high in the course, because of this. You called it onboarding. I don't know that people know exactly what that means, but it's establishing that someone's a right fit, that they're going to get what they need, that we have similar goals and values, and then going through this. All right, here's the way that that's part of why now I've got this longer process when I talk to people for Yoga Healer, but for myself is now, okay, great. We've established that this is going to be a good fit. What are the ways that you're going to trip yourself up? Let's talk about that. Right? Out in the open, so that we know. And you have kind of almost like to me, there's like a, can I say shit list of like, okay, when I do this, I'm going to do that. Right? Like when I hide, I'm going to reach out to and know that it's being able to recognize when it's happening. And so, and this is also why I think for my own self and my courses, why the success rate is also so high, because of the onboarding process of really being able to have that conversation, asking the right questions, deep listening, both establishing, yes, this is a good fit. And then, okay, let's talk about how we're actually going to be successful and get out of our own way. And we call each other on that around here a lot. And it's in the most loving, awesome way. How many times I've had the yoga health coaches be like, are you doing that thing? You're doing that thing. And I'm like, shit, I am doing that thing. God, you guys, they called me on it last year at the retreat for hard, a couple of like Tara and Sarah, and they were just like, stop, you're doing that thing. I was like, no, I'm not. And they were like, yeah, you are. And then they laughed at me and we all had and it was so awesome.
Yeah. Well, and especially when it comes from a place of like, because you'll tell me when I'm doing that thing too. Like you'll let me know when I'm doing this, and this extreme ownership of behavior in alignment with evolutionary behavior, really in alignment with our own potential, is what it's always about. And it's never about one-upmanship. There's never a snarkiness to it. It's always like hey, you asked me to let you know, you asked me to be your mirror, and thank you for that honor. And I'll let you know. And I have Kim watchdogging me now. I'm like, if you see this behavior out of me, if you see this behavior out of me, if you see this, like, give it to me hard. I want it hard. Like I want it honest, straight, no fancy words around it. Like I don't need it that way, because I'm not interested in that. I just want to be able to self-correct. I just want to be able to integrate at another level. And and that's a big reason why we do the self-sabotage. It is so cool. I mean, it's a fun, I learned it from Craig Hamilton with dynamic, with a lot of the work he was doing with evolutionary groups that he learned from Andrew Cohen, who had a lot of shadow issues and blah, blah, blah. We're not going to get into that story, but like the power of dynamic groups. And I just want to end by saying, when we practice this as pro healers, and this I think is what's going to get crazy exciting about the whole next evolution happening within all of the programs here, is I was really getting through through this whole iterative process of like, how do I make everything work better, faster, more fun and effective, right? Like that's been what I've been up to lately, and it's been super intense and powerful, and crazy amounts of ebooks and content and videos and whatnot around all of this. There's this thread of coming down to the method, the values, and the method is basically the values that we share as a tribe.
Yep.
And teaching to leading to the values personally, leading to the values professionally, like helping people connect with other people that have these values.
Yeah. Dynamic
groups and deep listening. And we talked about deep listening today, but like this dynamic groups component is like, unless we can deeply listen, unless we can do all these things, this care, this empathy, this amount of time and space, unless we can have each other's backs, unless we can personally identify our own ways that we need help, we need other people to help us see it. We need other people to honestly call us out on the stuff we want to be called out on now. Like, unless we can't be in a dynamic group, but when we can do all that, we can now expect rapid evolution in the ways that we're next desiring, because we are part of a group that has our back and can see, and we have a method for getting there.
Yeah. And you know, the other thing too is like I feel like when we start going through that ourselves, we get really good at sniffing out our own bullshit and being able to help other people do the same. Right. And we know we've been through it. So we know what it feels like. We know how to do it in a way that's like, is effective, but loving. And that was one of the things that totally friggin' sold me on you when I first found you, other than your amazing eyebrows. But it was that you said, this is a course for people who are sick of their own bullshit, right? I was like, oh my God, that's me. Like, like I need
her body tribe habits.
Yeah. Totally. But that's what I needed. I had tried everything else under the sun. I was so sick of lying to myself that it was not my fault, that it was genetics, that it was, I have this imbalance and I need to go here. And then it was like, no, I need to own this. I need to have people support me, hold up a mirror and say, Grace, you just did the thing that causes your depression to worsen, right? That's what Donna Skoglund was for me. She was an amazing BS caller.
Wow.
And it was incredible. And now I feel like that's part of my role too, is like, I'm sniffing a little bit of,
You want me to? Yeah, totally. So I just want to, so there's on the Changemaker Challenge form, there's a question here, and then we'll bring this to a close, because boy, Grace and I can hang out forever.
We said
Lynn is asking which habits. I know we were going to be short. We had a lot to say. Which habits would you suggest to healers to focus on if they're? And I think what she's saying, she says uprioting, but I think she means uprooting, a contraction of the heart, like Grace mentioned. So I think what Lynn is asking here is if you are a pro healer and you are having a deep dive conversation, and you're with someone and they're in that sticky spot, and you're getting closer to the root. Mm-hmm. And what we said already was like pause, like learning it's like, how can a pro healer be comfortable with other people's discomfort? I think that's really the root of that question. So what have you?
So I would say there's a couple of things, and it has a lot to do with like meditation techniques. Being able to, because I have found that what happens when things start to get a little uncomfortable and I can see emotion coming up is I feel myself contract and hold my breath, right? So like energy starts to, I would say, rise when you talk about that groundedness. So I do a lot of like low belly breathing when I get there, and really almost like I don't bite my tongue, but I think to myself, open your heart, shut your mouth. for now, right? Like there will be a moment when you can, once you've really felt and you're into that intuitive place, right? Which to me is like, I stick my belly out when I do this and rub it like a Buddha belly, but it's like, and sometimes I will, if I'm in front of someone, my hand on my belly, my hand on my heart. When I'm on the phone, I close my eyes. So I start to shut down any of the senses that I can, because I think I'm easily distracted. Most of us are, but I'll close my eyes and I'll really like listen beyond the words, hearing. And that's what's cool about being on the phone, is like hearing when the voice starts to quiver a bit, right? Hearing when someone starts to talk fast or loud, or when they're laughing when they really probably want to be crying, like listening for those things. And the more I get into my body, and I feel my feet on the ground. I put, like, if I'm sitting, I really now, a big practice is standing, is being able to stand. And even if you're in front of someone in person, you can both, you can even both stand up or shift. So in laughter yoga training, we learned motion to emotion, which is like move around to shift emotions. And so that for me is like, if you're sitting down, you can stand up or sit up a little taller and really start to take like that. And I don't know whether, Lynn, you were asking about like what body thrive habits, or whether
No,
like.
I don't think so. I think I don't think she is. I think she's really asking more about
lots of heart opening practices. Like every morning before I get on calls and lead a course call or whatever it is, I lay on my bolster and I open my heart. Like open, and get real, like get into this, and also put my hands up over my head, right? Like get into that, like, yeah, okay, and it's very invigorating. It really helps to just like get things going, and just totally giving everything I have to that person in the moment. Like no multitasking, no thinking about what's happening next. It's like really being present, and the breath helps with that. And yeah.
I love how you went to the breath first. Like first, I just allow. And I'm just going to unpack a little bit more of this too, and then I promise we'll go away.
They don't want us to go away. We don't have to apologize.
I know we don't, but we have another conversation.
I know we have other things to do.
Okay, so yeah, breath first, and it's going to fundamentally come down to, like you said, like these practices for meditation. Of when we do our own practices, can we just allow things to be exactly as they are? Like, can we allow that much spaciousness? And if we can allow that in ourselves, we're not pushing things away. We're not pushing people away. We're not pushing their emotions and their problems and their issues and their heartbreak and their, oh my gosh, the abuse that they've suffered. When we're not pushing that away, but we're simply energetically, physiologically allowing all the horror, all the pain, we're not saying it's okay, but just allowing it to be, allowing things to be as they are, allowing everything to be as it is, without needing to problem solve, like without needing to find solutions, without needing to jump into the authority, right? It was just allowing. And when we can feel that in our body, what that feels like, that's all we need to do. And you'll notice, actually, when we do that, just notice what happens in your jaw. You'll notice your jaw will actually relax.
Yeah.
And your tongue will soften. And the tongue will often fall from the roof of the mouth where it's going to pronounce. It'll fall to the floor. And there's a sense of like, okay, and now we can hear this, it's at this level of really that it's like listening as if you're the divine hearing, right? And it's like there doesn't need to be anything else. There's just that container for listening. So great suggestions from Grace. And I just want to say too, like, it's been so fun to see Grace thrive in this role of enrolling people. And really, it's a coach. I call them coaches because it's like, it is such a coaching position, and that the skill of deep listening for anyone who's wanting to experience a breakthrough, you've got to get so interested in deep listening. And I'm going to post some links under this. This is going to be both in a podcast and also in the Changemaker Challenge forum. So I'll post some links to some really great resources to help with deep listening. Thank you so much, Grace Edison. Such a pleasure.
Thank you. All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening. Happy holidays to you and yours. Kate Stillman signing off. Namaste and have a great day.
Yoga Healer Real Life Show with Kate Stillman. Yoga Healer.